All right, what has happened, everyone? For those of you who've been following me for a while, you know the drill. November has officially closed, so this is going to be, the November trading recap. As usual, we're going to go through week by week, best trades, worst trades, and then I'm going to go over what I've kind of found about this month and how I'm going to take that and apply it to December because the market has been getting a lot better. There's been a lot more opportunities, so how am I going to, better take advantage of those? So let's get right into it. The first day of the month, so I guess the first week, but really just a Friday. I got a good start with $500 profit on KSHB. Now this trade is not a big winner for me, but at the same time, again, like I talked about, a lot happened in October. There was a lot of weed runners bouncing, and so this was one of them again into going into November. And so you can see right here, not the biggest percent gained, 130 to 2, so maybe like a 50% winner, but had a lot of green days in a row, and so I was looking for not a hard pull but a fade, and so we got this first red day. I got short. The intraday is pretty illiquid. Not much went on, and it went sideways most of the days. Held over short overnight. I think I held overnight this night again, and then I covered on this day. So that was a nice $500 to start off the month. So I'll take it, and then we dropped right into the second week. This week had a lot of really good trades. We went into, let's see, so ALPP. Now this was a runner that went from 7 cents all the way up to 40, and so of course I'm looking for the backside. I'm looking for the first red day, and as you can see here, so these days it's very smooth. Not very overextended yet, so it's pretty steady. And then we get kind of this blow off day, and you can kind of tell that because the volume's getting bigger and the intraday is just more choppier, right? There's a lot more sellers than buyers. There's a lot more pulls, and so that was something I kind of noticed. And so coming today, I was looking for it. Now, could it hold red, right? Could we, stop having like a strong morning spike and start fading? And so we kind of did that right out of the open. We pulled, we went red. I started in, and then we started to bounce. And I think the red green mark was right around 42 cents. I think it was right on this level. And so as we're approaching this green mark, I start adding into this, and it was good that I was adding this. But the mistake I think I made was that, see this little perk here, that this is when it went green. And now I didn't cut it, which is what I wanted to do because my risk was going to be up in the 45 area right here in the high of day. So I'm glad I didn't cut it. But when it failed, for those of you who remember this play and were watching the level 2, when it failed hard, right? It failed very convincingly. It was a huge tell that this was failing and going to hold red on the day. And I didn't add. And so I think, it's not the worst mistake, right? Because I'm shorting at least into strength on the front side. But once it failed even again to kind of confirm what I was looking for, I should have added more size, and I didn't. Not the end of the world. I still pulled out, I think, $600 to $700, but I just didn't get the add in. If I added it in there, it would have been a much better size that I would have wanted, and it would have been a bigger profit. But also too, it was kind of choppy. It pulled, then it started bouncing again. It pulled again, and that was a very weak low of day here. It didn't really go much lower. And so I kept thinking, like, this isn't going to pull like I want to. This isn't acting how I want it to. And so by this time, I was already all the way out. And then, not even 30 minutes later, it just absolutely crashes. So unfortunately, I did miss this move. But, I did get from, the high 30s to the low 30s. So I'll take it. I made, let's see here, how much was it? Yeah, $600. So I'll take that. But what I was really excited about was the next day, which was AGRX. Now, this was a listed NASDAQ play, but as you can see here, same as most tickers that I like to play, is that it had, 3 massive green days, and each day had an awesome gap, so it just got more and more extended as the days went on. And so again, I'm looking for the reversal. So if we go into intraday here, let me get a water here. So when you look at the first entry of every morning, there is a morning spike, and it's usually pretty strong. So if we go back, let's keep going. All right. So first green day, kind of grinding. So second green day, spike. Third green day, spike. So I'm looking for a trend change. I'm trying to, because, as you saw on the daily chart, this thing gaps a lot. So for me to try to short this when it goes red, if it gaps next day, it's kind of a chase, right? I can't short it when it goes red if there's a large gap. which was what was happening in pre-market. So I knew if I was going to get short, it probably had to be before it goes red, because by the time it goes red after a large gap, I've lost a lot of the range in the day, and my profit and risk reward might not be as great. So I was trying to look for a trend change. I was trying to see how strong or weak could the morning spike on the first red day potentially be. And so we get here. It is a weak pre-market, which is a good sign. And then we do have a spike. But like I just showed you, the other last two spikes were pretty strong. This one, you could almost argue this wasn't a spike. This was kind of like a weak grind that wasn't really going anywhere. And when it started failing over 3 and had this little crack, I started it in like the 290, 288s area, just with risk on 3. I was going to lose like 100, 200 bucks, because I thought this is a weak spike. This is it isn't a distinct trend change, but it was something that was different. And so when this is going on the 4th green day, if it broke 3, the odds of just a backside happening is much more in my favor. And so it pulled. I then convinced I was okay. I'm probably right. I'm probably on the right track. I add a little more here, pulled again, which gave me even more confidence. I think I got one smaller last add into one of these 2 pops, and then I just held. My risk was 3. I was risking like 400 bucks, and it pulled. Took a little bit off here, held some more through this bounce, and then covered into this wash for about $1,000. Yeah, a little around 1,000 there. So I was super happy with that trade, because in terms of like listed gains and me trading listed stocks, that's a bigger gain for me. I don't have many listed gains over $1,000. I have plenty of OTC gains over 1,000, because that's what I'm much more comfortable with. But in terms of listed, I was just super happy with this trade, because I read it well. I had a good trade plan. I had patience, and I was able to hold for this awesome red move and pull. So that was that for pretty much that week. Small loss on the 7th. An irrelevant trade. Didn't really learn much from it. And then the 3rd week, I could clearly see I lost 150 bucks. I could not get much going on this week. And the main trades that I was taking were on FSell. A big runner from 40 cents after big news with, I think, ExxonMobil, and it ran up to $1. Now, if you go to the longer term chart, this thing has failed continuously around $1, back up in here. I actually lost a lot of money trading this. If you go back to my July recap, I go over the trade they took here, and I just got absolutely murdered. I lost a lot of money, like $1,700. But so I was kind of prepared for this. I was like, okay, I know how this acts. I know how this should go down. I felt ready for it. Now, I did make some mistakes. I kind of got a little bit too greedy once I thought the first trade day was going to come, and it kind of bit me in the ass. I was up, a few $100, and I ended up giving that all away. So if we see here, had 2 green days now, and we're on the 3rd. And now again, I'm looking at $1 to fail, which is exactly what it did. Now, unfortunately, I should have been more aggressive and kind of maybe anticipated that and just cut it if it broke 1, but I didn't. So I started getting short up in here as it started fading, and I held all the way down to here. And this was where the red-green move was. If it went any lower, it was going to go red on the day. And in my head, I was so convinced that this was going to go red that I didn't cover anything. I didn't cover. I covered a little. I covered like 1,000 shares, and I had like 7,000. Right, so not even, just extremely small partial position. And then as you can see what happened, it bounced all the way back. Right, and so at this point, I just get frustrated. I realized like I was just being greedy. I wasn't, I should have taken more off. Obviously, I always like to see a stock go red, and I'll cover on a red move. So I definitely would have had a little bit of size left in this bounce. But to only take off, 1/7 of my position size when it clearly triple bottomed like this, that's just not okay with me. I was just getting too greedy. And so at some moment, one of these pulls here, I just covered, and I took, like a small $80 win. It just wasn't, it didn't go the way I wanted. And unfortunately, I didn't play it correctly. I didn't react correctly when the price action was going against what I thought was going to happen. And so that was just my own fault. And then next day here is a nice overextended gap down. But again, I didn't take all that much size on it. I kind of went small because I felt like I kind of got all psyched out from this earlier trade where it's like, this thing could still bounce. This thing looks stronger than it really is. I kind of just got in my own head. And so, even though this was a great pull and a great play, I just never took much size on it. And I ended up, taking, I think, a loss or 2 on it as well, trying to get these trades to work for me. And so by the end of the week, I'm down, $150 is really nothing for me, but it just shows I couldn't get any momentum going. Nothing was really working for me. So not a big deal. We go into week 4, And this is where I obviously made most of my money, only almost $3,000 in profits. So the best day was the 20th because we had CLSK. So if you know what I look for, like this is it. And this was a promotion. This was a type of promotion. This stock ran, big time back in early like January, from like all the way up to $7, I think it was, like from 4 to 7, yeah, all the way to 8, and just been fading nonstop. And so there was a promotion put out on this. I think there was a landing page of an article written on it that we're getting investors interested in buying it. And so it was pretty liquid, but it kept grinding and grinding and grinding, green day after green day. And finally we get in the high 90s here. We get around 96, 95. And I'm thinking, can this go over $1? Like, can this promotion be strong enough and bring in enough buyers to get this over 1? And so we start seeing this cracking, right? Every day there's usually a pretty steady uptrend, not too much, sideways action. It's pretty always inclining. But here it's like little pull, bigger pull. And so at this point I'm thinking, okay, it doesn't hurt to probably take a starter. And then we start pulling even more. So then I have to add full size. I did not cover any here. In hindsight, I didn't know this bounce was coming. So obviously if I knew this was going to happen, I probably would have tried to cover something here. But I didn't, because I also knew this could go back down to where it started from when the promotion started. And so I held through this bounce, and we started fading more and fading more. And then once we broke this low from the first day at like 66 cents, we went into the 60s in here, I covered. And so I ultimately made like $1,500, $1,600. So that was a super, super sweet start to that day. And then we keep going even more, and we get KRTX. Now, KRTX is not my typical price range for a stock, right? I don't really typically look to short any stock really over $10, but this stock, had gone from $20 to over to 150. And so that got me interested. And what got me more interested is that if you saw, actually, I'll just go on intraday here. There was a huge fake out from going from that first green day to go to the second green day. Like, if you watched it, it looks like it was going to go red and fade off, and then it started squeezing. This move right here. And because I didn't short this, right? In my head, this was like, this is a higher price stock. I'm not going to touch this. I'm not interested. And anyone who did short it and didn't take profits, they got squeezed. I mean, this thing really ran and ripped. But that move got me interested because that made me realize there's people shorting this, and if they got squeezed out, it was right here, right? Now I'm thinking, kind of an unknown or not much talked about concept is like, you want to short after the shorts have been squeezed, like short after the early shorts, right? Because then that's usually when the top is in, and that's going to give you the best odds of finally getting the real backside. And so that move got me interested because I realized, this can't have, at some point the squeezes are going to end, right? There's going to be a backside move. And so this is now the third day. So for this to continue to go to a third day and go to like $200 or 180 and keep squeezing was just very, very unlikely. So I wasn't, too eager to short it. I was staying patient, and I'd let this whole chop around, right? I wasn't really even watching that often. Like, it wasn't, the great part about this trade is I didn't have FOMO, right? If this faded and I wasn't there, I wasn't going to be there for it, and I was going to miss it. But I stayed patient. I wanted to wait for something so obvious that I could just get short and have an easy win. And so I start seeing this, and you start seeing this sideways action, right? Look at the past 2 days when it runs. It's constantly in an uptrend. Like, there's solid spikes. There's some hard pulls, but it comes back. Like, massive spikes, pulls, massive spikes. But here, there's no massive spikes, and there's like really only pulls. Right? A couple spikes here, but it goes right back down. Spikes here, goes right back down. And so you see here midday, it is completely sideways action, right? It's almost like the stock. When I see sideways action like this, the stock for me, like, I'm reading it as buyers are giving up, and there's more sellers coming in slowly and slowly and slowly. And there's still buyers who haven't realized that yet, right? Which is the only reason why it's staying up here. So again, if you put all the indicators together, third green day in a row, right? It's going to take a lot for the stock to keep going. It's now midday, volume is fading, it's going sideways, and now every spike it's had is failed to hold green, right? So in my eyes, everything was coming together, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take a short. I saw this little crack here. I then started getting short in the 180 area. I think 119 or 118.50 was my average, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to have to wait for this to pull back. But as you can see, I waited maybe 10, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden this thing starts fading and fading and fading. And so I thought this thing can go to $100 because that was kind of this like support level. Excuse me. You see all these support levels from the days prior. So I thought it can go to 100. So when we pull back there, we start getting low and low and lower. I start realizing, I don't want to be greedy in this. I don't want to try to time the bottom perfectly. So I just started covering in the 10 or 104s and 103s, and that was another $500 to add on to the already $1,600 day. And then another trade. So this, like a lot of trades happened on the 20th here, was NEXC or CF. This trade was pretty funny because I made a massive amount of $7. So if you see this is a OTC runner. It was getting extended, and I was looking for this first red day, and we go to the intraday here. So what happened was it was gapping down, and it was gapping too far down to the point I didn't want to chase it. I did not want to chase weakness and not get filled. And so this little wick right at the open, the high was 207. I was sitting on the ask at 207, and there was a couple buyers. The problem is I got like 100 shares of those buyers. So now I'm sitting here with like 100 shares, and I don't have size, and it starts panicking. And so in my eyes, it's like, I can't chase this. I can't get myself a bad average. I'm not going to put myself in that much tougher situation. And, when it pulled, I thought it was going to pull much more. Like I thought we were going to immediately get, if I had full size, I thought we were going to get a pull to like 190s, even into the 180s very quickly, like a nice panic. And we didn't, right? We're holding, right under $2. And so with my 100 shares at this point, after 20, 30 minutes, I'm like, does it even matter anymore? Like I have 100 shares and it's not even doing what I want. Like, let me just cover. So I made $7 and kind of completely forgot about this, which was the mistake, because the red-green move was like 211 right here where my mouse is. And you can see this thing bounced, failed to go green, and then the rest of the day it's fading. It fades all day. And so I didn't see it until it was already at a new low a day, and I just kind of, I knew exactly what happened, right? I kind of overlooked this move as something that wasn't working, but then completely forgot to check on it that it was going to hold red, and then it faded. So the best thing I could have done was still cover here, but once I start seeing this fail to go back green, that's when I should probably reshort, right? I should probably reshort on this fade, and I would have caught at least some of this fade to make more money. So, missed opportunity, not the worst thing in the world. Didn't take a loss on it, so that's not too bad. And then we have QBIO, which is another OTC runner, which is why I'm really happy how this month went and what looks good for December, because we've had a lot of OTC runners. We haven't had these all summer. And so this stock had actually what I thought was pretty solid news. They got approval for a drug that no other company has. Again, I don't read too much in the news, but with the volume that was coming in on this, I was pretty excited for either going a long or a short either way. But I am, of course, short bias. This thing is went from 40 cents to over $2. So it's like at some point it gets kind of over itself. I did miss this pull. I didn't short any of this, which obviously in hindsight looked pretty nice. But the next day is when I got interested, and it gapped up to 2. It pulled and then couldn't break the high a day, right? So kind of a solid double top. And so I started shorting in here, and it pulled, which was pretty sweet. Now the red-green level is like the 160 area, like you see where these bounces are. And so the way I've always experienced OTCs is that they don't hold green too easily, or too if they're going red, they're gonna go right. There's gonna be plenty of panic sellers, and it's gonna take it red, no problem. So when this held green here, I didn't think I'd have too big a deal. Like, okay, this is going to bounce, and then it's going to fade. We come back to the red-green level, and it's holding, right? You see all these little bottoms, and it's not going anywhere. And so at this point, I'm thinking, I'm going back to that news and back to the volume. I'm thinking, this could squeeze. This could keep going. And so I played it safe. I covered into this push, made a few $100, and then I said, I'm going to just see how this goes. I actually then switched my buys and started taking a very teeny long position, because I thought if this can consolidate and start breaking the highs, I could be sitting comfy with a nice long position. But it didn't. It faded. I lost $100 in the long, and then I reshorted when it finally broke these lows. Now normally I don't like doing this because it is a little bit of a chase in terms of having my average before, which was in the 190s. But again, I'm looking. The fact that this did confirm for me that it was going red, it just didn't do it when I wanted it. Told me that I was still okay getting short and making some more money out of it. And so it happened. It pulled. I then ended up covering into these lower dips. And as you can see here, it's kind of the same action as it did when it was holding green. It just wasn't really making any solid new low days, and it was kind of just consolidating, kind of bottoming out. And so at that point, I just didn't want to stick around. I didn't want to risk, giving back any more profits that I already had kind of done from trying to long it and then not being patient for it to hold this till it goes red kind of thing. So I just covered, and I ended up making, another $500 or $600, which is nice. But like similar to the ALPP, I just didn't take as much aggression in that I should have. For an OTC runner that was really solid, not as much aggression was taken, in this trade. And so that's almost all through the week. The 22nd was PTI. Now, this stock is a solid runner, and one of these days it had a hard pull into the close. And so I thought, this is the backside, it's coming in, I'm just going to get short, and hopefully it'll fade into the close, a hold overnight, and we'll get a first red day. This day right here on the 22nd. So you see here, again, sideways action, kind of similar to KRTX, and we get a massive pull, right? Big pull, big red volume seller. It's probably a big seller getting out. And so I start shorting at this bounce. I'm thinking this bounce should fade, and it did fade, right? It started fading, and I really thought if this can get below like 160 into the close, like down back to its lows, I want to hold overnight. I want to catch a first red day. And as you can see what happened, I mean, the price action completely changed. Immediately got spiked out, and I ended up covering into the spike for, $360 loss, which sucked. But the last thing I needed was to hold overnight on a solid green day and still above, the consolidation level now that it had squeezed into the close. And so I said, hell no, forget that. And I avoided this massive gap. Because imagine if I had shorted overnight and held, being stubborn, and then all of a sudden I wake up to another 10, 15 cent gap. This loss would have been like $600-$700. So glad I cut that. Finishing off the week, $2,700, which is my biggest week, which I was really happy about. And then we get into the last week. The last week, it looks good because I won a lot. I didn't lose, but every trade I took, it just was a dud. Like every setup I tried, it was just not going anywhere. And I became very nimble, and I just kind of almost cut my win short. Like where, if I didn't cut it when I did, I would have taken like 3 losses instead of 3 gains each one of these days. Because I just noticed very quickly that the plays I was looking to short just weren't really looking all that great. One of them was PTI. On this day when it was failing to break out over the 275 area, I started getting short. But again, like this fading looks so controlled, and for having almost 6 green days in a row, you think the more sellers would want to get out, but they just weren't, and they were holding up. And I'm like, what? I don't need this to squeeze me out like it did a couple days prior. And so I covered for like $90. And then finally I see this fade and die after kind of scaring everyone out with this bounce. And so I completely missed that, made $90. Another one was SSI. You can clearly see from this candle, I don't even really need to show the intraday chart where it had an overextended gap down. I got small position, and after a couple hours of being short, it just didn't go anywhere. Right? The range on this is not too big, and it actually had a green candle on an overextended gap down day, so that just didn't work too well. Made like $80 on that, and then kind of the same thing with SRNE, where the second red day was where it really pulled. But the first red day, it just was tight. It was choppy. There was a lot of volume. And I just ultimately realized, like, this isn't going where I wanted to go. I was short in the 295 area. And I just see, like, it just didn't go anywhere. Like, it was right on my average the entire time. So when this started spiking back, I just covered in here. I said, forget this. Like, I don't need this in my life. So that's pretty much the month, And again, looking at my win rate, it looks really good. I'm at 74%. I haven't had that kind of a win rate, I think, since last summer of 2018. So I'm very happy about that. And I probably have that because, one, I was very nimble on the trades that didn't work, right? All these 3 trades last week didn't work, but I still made money. So that's going to bring my win rate up. But then even then, we got more OTC runners. We had CBIO, we had ALPP, we had NEXCF. And so all these runners were great, but, how I know what I've seen from my trading history in the past is that I should have taken bigger advantage of these. I made, $600, $700, $800 on any various of these plays, but honestly, they should have been $1,200, $1,500, like CLS cake type, $1,600 wins. And so it's not the end of the world, right? I still, took advantage of those opportunities, but I was not taking the proper risk to make those bigger gains for how well I was trading, right? Just looking at my biggest loss for the entire month was that PTI 360 loss. I mean, in some past months, my average loss has been 360, So I was taking multiple $400, $500, $600 losses, which I'm perfectly fine with. But this entire month, my biggest win or my biggest loss was only 360. Like, that tells me I wasn't necessarily being as aggressive as I probably should have been. And maybe that might be why my win rate was higher. I wasn't maybe as emotional. And so I'm trying to find that inner, like that kind of silver lining where I'm still pushing the envelope to be aggressive and take bigger risks, but also don't want to take too big of risks and kind of being emotional and kind of trading sloppy, which I feel like I've done that the past, 2-3 months or so. So something I need definitely to look forward to and find that middle ground. And something that kind of caught on to me to look at this was if you've seen my Check Your Stats for Your Regular Stats Part 2 video, I talk about, graphing your stats. And so this one is one of the graphs I showed where it's like I gather all my capital from all my trading accounts and I look at like what's my percent return month over month. And so my average is around, 10, 11, sometimes 12%, over, year over year. And as you can see here, the last 4 months of August, September, October, and now November, I'm hovering around 4 or 5%. So that was one of the first signs to tell me, like, you need to look at your trading, Kyle. I've been well below average of my personal average for the past 3 months, 3, 4 months. Now, has the market changed a lot? Am I trying to get better at listed stocks, which is kind of changing how I am as a trader? Absolutely. But when the market that I used to know that was giving me, 12, 15, 16% returns on some of these months was when there was a lot of awesome OTC runners that came around. And we got those, right? We had QBIO, like we had ALPP, like I said. And for me to not take advantage of those as much as I should have, shows, right? I should have probably made 10 to 12% on average this month because I got enough opportunities, but I did not take the risk to kind of, the plays that I took deserved the risk and I didn't take it. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully you guys like this one. But yeah, very excited for December. Hopefully we get as much plays as we did this month. And so I'll talk to you guys next time. Later.